Everybody watching, my wife will back me up when I say this. I can see color, but I don't see colors very well. So if I describe a color and it's not that color, don't throw something at me because I don't see it very well. So I don't even know what to call the color. On the far left side of the map, that is the Billingsley zone. Once a toggle closed, that's the zone. Help me out, what is that middle color there? This right here, is that yellow, green? Green. All right, yeah. See, I'm not making it, you've known me a long time. All right, so that is the current Prattville school zone, okay? The bottom portion, I guess that's a pink maybe, that's your Daniel Pratt area. So that all that in the green and pink is your Prattville zone. The light blue, I don't know why, but forever the district's designated that as Pine Level, and the other blue, I don't know what you would call it, purple, blue, all right. It is the Marbury zone, but those two shades is the zone. So if you, in your mind, take the right side map and you transpose it to the left map, you will see there's a lot of territory with a lot of students that a lot of those decisions would have to be made. I have no idea, we have no idea. We wouldn't know all that until that process moved further. But it goes back to what we just talked about with long-term planning. We can't accommodate the growth now. So if this occurs, we have to start positioning ourselves in a better position to make sure we can moving forward. All right, Mr. Conyers? All right. So just to make sure, I know that's hard to see, I'll explain it. So when you become a superintendent, you have to do state mandated training. The sheet to the right, yes, I know there's a blue mark there. That's my writing where I've been looking at this stuff way too much. The handbook on the left is what we get trained on, we get tested on. That's part of the state mandated guidelines. The page on the right came from that. So this is what I need our people at home and everybody to understand. So in order to build a secondary school, per that guidance, you have to have 30 acres. It's there. Again, you can probably see a little blue mark. 30 acres plus 1 acre for every 100 students. So I get asked this a lot, why hasn't there been any construction in Marbury Pine Level? The 30 acres we own was a great investment at the time. It's not big enough to do anything with. So we go back again, I know we're dealing with Prattville, we're dealing with Billings, this is about Pine Level. You cannot build on that 30 acres without picking up 10 extra acres. So that's our reality. And there's the code that specifies it, it's all right there. All right, Mr. Conyers? All right, so this is an aerial map. I wish I could go over that way. I'll kind of explain a little better. I may have to go back and forth, but all right. So at the bottom, there's a long rectangle. Right here. All right. If you pull that on the parcel map for the Autauga County, I guess it's the probate, it shows 58 acres. That is not correct. Once you click on it, it gives you the tax thing. It's 30 acres. I think 31. The property behind that, that land is not for sale. But you can see the dilemma. If Pine Level is here and Pine Level occupies 22 acres roughly, you transpose that to the 30 acres we have, well, you're running out of real estate again, but it goes back to the regulation is 30 acres plus 1 for every 100 students, okay? The property I'm bringing to you tonight is the bottom left-hand portion, okay? You will see buildings. I'll go into it in very detail in just a minute. What that property would do if you guys decided to look at this, it's 10.5 acres. The building there is 17,000 square feet. I'll get more detailed in a minute, but it gives you roughly 40.5 acres of 31 frontage. It also gives you multiple points of entry, multiple points of exit because the county road to the left, you have 31. It solves a lot of the problems that our current property has. All right, Mr. Conyers? All right, so I figured, well, anytime you're in real estate, guys, I'm gonna say this, and y'all know me by now, I'm always just gonna be honest and open and transparent. I have not been prepared for the price of construction in education. These numbers I'm giving you are the current numbers of the facilities that we are building right now. These numbers were from the low bid that was awarded. As you know, we're doing multiple, we call them metal buildings, there's a little more to it, but there's multiple projects going on across the county right now. So here we go. I'm calling it indoor heating facility. They can use it a lot of different ways, but Prattville and Marbury both had a very large cage area that we're trying to enclose. We ran out of money. I'm going to do I'm gonna bring you Billingsley soon, but for the purpose of this, Prattville Indoor Heating Facility, that was $161 per square foot. That is literally, there's a concrete slab, there's a metal building, there's no heating and air, there's roll-up doors. That's the cost for us, $161 per square foot. Now, you may say, why is Prattville more or less than Marbury? All right, so Marbury, if you've been to the softball field, they're having to cut a road in behind the softball field. So the cost per square foot also counts in all the dirt work and things of that nature, okay? So that facility is literally the exact same facility, but it looks more because of the dirt work. That costs $199 per square foot. Okay, so one of the other things that I've not been prepared for coming into this role is we have nowhere to put anything. There's no storage anywhere. We've got stuff in rooms all across this county. Maintenance, obviously they need a central place. So what we were looking at was having that, it says storage building, but it would have a few offices. It would be heated and cooled because obviously they will have some things that cannot get too hot, just keeping up with all that. That building is literally a 60 by 100 building with a little more offices, heated and cooled, and you see the cost. $273 per square foot at a total of $1.6 million. Shows how good of a job we've done with the livestock lab, Mr. Trock, because I think we put about 1.6 in that, if I remember right. All right, Prattville female locker room, okay? And again, we are doing these on every campus. Why is that price higher? Okay, all three of these are literally the same building. But again, depending on what they have to do with the dirt work, it alters the price per square foot. These facilities, Mr. Mayor, if I'm saying this wrong, just correct me, but I believe we have at least 2 locker rooms, one on each end. There's a turf area in the middle, and there's restrooms, things like that to code, because obviously students will be in there. The cost there, you see the cost, between $327 to $340 a square foot. Each building, you can just say is $2 million. That's 6,000 square feet. Keep that number in mind. That's 6,000 square feet. The Chapter 1 Records building at the moment was going there. I'm going to possibly bring up some changes on that very soon, depending on how this goes. Again, all the county's records used to be in a trailer right behind here. Now, obviously, we've moved them and they're secure. But that building, heated and cooled because of what, you can't have moisture and things of that nature in that building. But even that building is $662,000. All right, Mr. Conyers? All right, so in the proposed purchase, it is 17,000 square. It's a 17,000 square foot commercial building that, in my opinion, gives the board what we don't have right now. It's flexibility. If the city system splits, there's some legislative changes we would have to do there if the county moved their operations out of the city to the county. This purchase could give you those options. I've talked to our local delegation. I don't think that would be a big deal because it would be a unique situation. It could be used for some things we just talked about: maintenance, personnel, CMP, SPED. It could be a future ag shop. Again, if you've been into the building, I'm going to say it, it's Ace Hardware. It's very wide open. It's a metal building. They are built that way to allow you to adjust however you need to. It's heated and cooled. It has offices. It could be a future ag shop. It could be a weight room, career tech facility. We kicked around the idea of a special education training facility that we've talked about, that we explored some options there and ran into some issues. The key there is it gives you a building, and I'm going to get into the cost in a minute on why I think it's a good purchase. It also includes 2 40 by 170 covered pole barns. That's currently where they keep the lumber and blocks and quickcrete, things like that. There's also a 1,200 square foot heated and cooled shop. They use this for small engine repair. For us, obviously the building's important, but for us, long-term planning, it also gives you 10.5 acres, which then gets you above the state guidelines that I just explained. So part of what we're working out now with the seller, right now all the lumber, parts of some of the plumbing supplies, nuts and bolts aisle, things like that our maintenance uses a lot of, that would come with the building as well. So there's a built-in cost savings with all that as well. We go through a lot of that stuff. Our maintenance department does a great job, and anytime you're fixing stuff, you're using materials. All right, so the property proposed to be purchased is a little over 17,000 square feet. The contract you have in front of you is $4.2 million. That is an astronomical number that 5 years ago I would have told you that is wow. think of the data I just gave you. That's $247 per square foot. Well, that does not include the 10.5 acres. I'm saying when I'm giving that price, obviously the property includes all that. You have 10.5 acres, you have the 2 pole barns, you have the heated and cooled shop. I got a chart on the next slide that I tried to explain that a little better. But here's what I need the public to understand, and this is why this decision is so big for us moving long term. If we were to build the building, I talked to Mr. Kamara and I were on the phone with the architect again today. We said just straight, let's pretend the dirt work's fine because in that area it is pretty level. What could we expect to spend? And he said on the low end, $250, $300 a square foot. Well, I'm going to show you. I mean, y'all seen the numbers. Construction's construction. I'm telling you, you're going to spend $340, $350 a square foot because we're doing it right now with 3 metal buildings that would equate to the same types of things in that facility. So at $250 a square foot, we would spend $4.2 million, $4,250,000. If we take the average of those 3 projects I just gave you, which again, with the heating and cooling, some of the offices, restrooms, that mirrors what this property is, that our cost on average, again, this is just using the numbers we're using, is $332 a square foot. That number is $5,644,000. So the property before you is $4.2 million. I don't think we can build the building for $4.2 million with the current environment of what we deal with. Okay? All right. Moving forward, Mr. Conyers. All right. So I know that's a lot of language, a lot of this. So if we buy it at 4.2, that includes the 17,000 square foot building, that includes the 10.5 acres, that includes a 1,200 square foot shop, that includes 2 40 by 170 pole barns. I didn't have this cost in there, but the parking lot's already there. That cost is astronomical when we start paving things. It includes some needed inventory that we need. If we were to build it, again, I'm bringing this to you guys because we have been very public. We can only fix one issue. I've said that. I know everybody's tired of me saying it. We can fix one issue. That bond amount is about $30 million. Because of what we're dealing with, you can build a Marbury Middle School for $30 million. You can add some athletic facilities at Billingsley. That's the only things we can solve right now. So back to this, you're looking at this stuff and you go, okay, if the city does break off, what does that look like long term? The train that is coming down the tracks is if they break off, you're going to have 700 kids, maybe 500, maybe 300. You've got a double whammy. You've got the growth of the area plus the kids that are coming, and you have nowhere to put them. So that's why I'm bringing the property. So on the other side of the chart, if we build it, all right, 17,000 square feet. I put the price ranges on there, the numbers I just gave you, between 4.2 and between 5.6. Again, I think that's probably a little more if I'm being honest with you, but I'm just using numbers that we're currently involved in contracts now. I think that's a good basis point. The 10.5 acres. Guys, one of the acres, the property is divided into 3 parcels. One of them's for sale right now for $599,000 for a 1 acre lot. All down 31, there are multiple lots that have sold for between $200,000 and $600,000. Actually, I think 700. I have to go pull that record again. For 1 acre. We need 10. Do the math. If we don't get 10 acres, I'm going to then come to you and say, this is what we need to do with the 30 acres. If we're not going to build out there, let's divide it in 30 1-acre lots, put it up for sale, and try to do that because there's no reason to hold on to that land and not do something with it. Okay? The 1,200 square foot shop, I did just kind of randomly guess there. I know my dad's in construction. I've asked him 100 times. He tells me right now that residential construction is costing him about $150 to $175 a square foot. I shot that low and said $150 a square foot is $180,000. $200 a square foot is $240,000. Again, you just add it up, and then I don't know what the inventory retail value there is, but that would be an offset cost as well. All right, Mr. Conyers. All right, so I guess why? I hope I've covered some of that, but if we go this route, it gives you the land that is required legally for new school construction. I'm not saying we can build a school. I'm saying you can't even get to that conversation unless you get 10 acres. It provides the flexibility. Maybe it's not a school, maybe it's add on a couple of wings, but again, if city breaks off, I would imagine the county would want the county Board of Education in the area that serves the kids. That's just a guess. One thing that gives me fits right now from an accountability standpoint is my staff is spread out literally all over the county. So this gives you that option. Do you put everybody under one building, that ACE building? Do you run your maintenance department, transportation? Do you funnel all that in one location? If they break off, we're going to have those discussions anyway. I don't know of much other land coming up for sale around there. I think this is a big one. I think if we're not going to do this, and that's fine if we don't, but if we're not, we got to have a hard discussion on the 30 acres because that area is growing. From a business standpoint, it don't make much sense for us to keep holding on to 30 acres when I've given you some of the numbers that the land is selling for. Kudos to the previous board. I mean, I think they paid $20,000 an acre many, many years ago for it. I remember being out there. I was like, my goodness, $20,000 an acre. That was a good investment. Shout out to them. That was a good investment. But what it does for us is it's business. That area is growing. There's other people interested in the property. So if you get the wrong thing in that 10 acres, well, and I say wrong thing, I mean define wrong thing. I don't know. But if something does not match the path that we want to take educationally, that's a large chunk of frontage that's right there by any future school that kind of alters what you're going to do. So this purchase of this, yes, I know it's high in terms of in our world, what we're dealing with, but in terms of the education world, in terms of business, honestly, I think I've shown you the numbers back up that it's not what it sounds like it is. But it does protect the investment that's already been made, and it gives some direction on what we're going to do. I will say this. I've been very clear for the year and a half, 2 years I went around having discussions. I've told everybody all along the line. There are two landowners that if one of those properties comes up, it changes the conversation. The other landowner, the big field behind the school, that is not on the market at the moment. Okay? If we don't go this route, the only way you can build on that property is if we're able to secure that land. It may happen, you never know. But now you're down to one option, which you had before a couple weeks ago when the land came up on for sale. The biggest thing I want y'all to know is if a split occurs, there is nowhere to put these kids. Mr. Lansdale, not to put you on the spot, but I think he would back me up. The growth is coming no matter what. So what are we going to do? If construction started today, again, you're looking at 2 to 3 years. That's the way that works. Obviously, that begs the question, what will we do? We would make the best that we could. We'd see if we can get everybody in there. If not, you're going to have to do what every district does. You have to bring in a couple trailers and get by until construction was completed. The biggest thing that is upon us now is how are we going to plan for our future? This decision, in my opinion, sets a course one way or the other. I wouldn't be bringing this to you if that property wasn't for sale. I wouldn't be bringing this to you if there were 7 adjoining landowners that could fit I'm bringing it to you because there's only 2 landowners that surround the 30 acres, and one of them's for sale and one of them's not. Now, I will say this, if that other ever came open, I'd be bringing it to you too, because again, the growth is coming that way, whether we like it or not. So to rehash the numbers one more time, if we were to build the building at $300 a square foot, you're going to spend $5,100,000. At $250 a square foot, we're going to spend roughly what we're paying. The average of the 3 projects to compare best to this that was just awarded on a bid, that I think is the most realistic number that you can put your hat on. Those projects went out for bid, and that average cost is $332 per square foot, which would put this building at $5,644,000 without the land, without the auxiliary buildings, without the inventory. That's the data. That's the numbers. All right, Mr. Conyers? All right, so I know the blowback is coming. Well, we've heard we're broke. Guys, I've said it publicly numerous times. A lot of what Ms. Wallace has said, I went around when the tax failed, we got very creative, okay? We figured out ways to make things happen. I've said it publicly numerous times. Our day-to-day finances, we're in really, really, really good shape, okay? What I've asked for help from our local entities was bond money because of how the state makes us get loans with bonds. Not to bore everybody with that, but it's tied to your millage. Most of our available millage goes to paying the state match. You don't have the available millage to go get bonds. Now, to prove, again, kind of the things that we've done since we've all been on board, we've done some things that hadn't happened. I don't mean that before. We've had very good leadership. We've had a lot of good things happen. We've funded instructional supplements. We've increased fine art and athletic supplements. I think some of that you're seeing tonight with investments in career tech and investments in clubs and investments in supplements. You're getting a better product because teachers are finally being paid for some of the stuff that they always did after school with no compensation. I think we're turning the tide there. We did performance bonuses last year for all employees because of our state report card. Again, we've dramatically improved nearly all of our campuses in terms of facility needs. We've done a lot of projects all across this county trying to modernize and get better. We've paid off 3 bonds over the last 3 years. So it boils down to money. Do you have the money to make the purchase? I'm not the financial expert, Ms. Wallace is, but we have a 7-month financial reserve. The state recommendation is 1 month. I will never recommend you guys go below 3 because that gives you the leeway in case something bad happens. And when you're dealing with older facilities that 180, 60 years old, sometimes things happen and you may have to dive into your local funds. So I will never recommend, to the best of my ability, unless we just have to, I think it's financially smart to keep 3 months reserve in your account. So if approved, this purchase would get us just a little, right at 6.5 months reserve. So the money's there to do the project. All right, Mr. Conyers. All right, so if the proposed contract is approved tonight, guys, that does not mean the sale is final. Okay, what you're approving is the language in the contract. The seller and I will still have to get together. There is a due diligence period, just like in any contract. All you're approving right now is that you're good with the terms as far as the amount. You've seen the contract. You're authorizing our board attorney and myself and the seller to keep working through that process. If all parties agree and a closing date is set, the board will then have to have another meeting where you will authorize the final purchase. So once we work through that process, if everything is crossed the T's, dotted the I's, and everybody's happy, then y'all will then vote on dispersing the funds for the property. So tonight's the first approval step. After that process is completed, then we'll bring it back to you for final authorization. I guess that's a better way of saying it. Not that I try to give my opinion a whole lot, but I think what we are missing right now in an uncertain future is the flexibility to try to figure out things. And this is fluid. Everybody knows it. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. Without a funding partnership, we cannot fix the facility issues in Prattville. There's too many kids. The numbers are too high. We've been over all that. If the city breaks off, you can fix some small issues. You could probably squeak in a Marbury Middle, but you're not going to have the capacity at Marbury High School with the 700 kids that come out, or 400 to 500 kids. So can you build a middle school and limp through for the next 4 to 5 years? Possibly. Can you do any of that without buying 10 more acres? No. That answer's unequivocally no. And again, what I'm quoting to you is out of the training that we get from the state. That's why I included the copies, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions on where that came from. All right. I think that's it, Mr. Conyers. Is that right? All right, board members, I'm sure y'all got some questions for me. If I get stumped, I'm going to look at my students in the aisle and go, hey, help me out.
I do have a question. Turn my mic on. I do have a question. Does the code regarding the acreage limitations, does it allow for that building to be used as any of the things that you mentioned?
You're talking about the I hate to say the building, but the Ace Hardware building? Yes. As long as we bring it up to code for our purposes, then yes, we could use it for fill in the blank.
Okay.
And that would count because that would be a continuous, that's a 40-acre lot at that point.
Okay.
It's all continuous. There is a way that you can limp through and maybe add some hallways to Pine Level. I have not got I've not got a definitive answer on that one yet from the state. I've called a few times. The question there is, do you have to then reorganize the school to a K-8 model to get around some of that? But again, you go to a K-8 model, the growth is going to kick you right back out of that within a year or two, and it's just, I wouldn't recommend that, but if we got in a absolute pinch, we could get by for a couple of years on that without purchasing. Again, I haven't got that answer in writing yet. I've had a few answers on the phone call, but I'm trying to get stuff in writing.
Okay, a lot of the questions that I've been getting also are, if the city does split, where does that leave the county? Like,
You mean just
financially-
overall?
Well, like, financially and,
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it will depend on if that occurs. Legally, we can't get very far into negotiations without a formal vote first, and then that allows us to go to negotiations. Now, I will rely on what Criterion came up with. The biggest change, 10 to 15, 20 years ago, you didn't have the housetops, you didn't have some of the businesses, you didn't have the growth out in those two communities that you do now. The fact of the matter is, we have a lot of families that have moved to Billingsley and Pine Level. The growth out there is consistent. So that has changed that answer. 10, 15 years ago, I don't think there was enough there. Now, based on a Criterion answer, it's out there, public. They felt like if you make some cuts at central office, which again, if you're going from 8,500 students down to roughly 4,000, yeah, you're gonna adjust staffing. Outside of that, yeah, we would be fine. Now, I know I'm kind of rambling on that, but then you get into questions about debt service. The legal consequence on a split is the city has to take over any debt that's in the city of Prattville. Our current debt is in the city of Prattville. So from that standpoint, to answer the question, just a little more straight to it, based on the criterion information, based on sales tax revenue, based on all that, and based on the fact that we would have to be debt-free, I'm a lot less apprehensive about it than what I was as a Marbury High School teacher 10 years ago.
okay. So if you're saying that even if we broke ground today, it'll be 2 to 3 years before students are in a building, what have you heard from the city about when we could hear from, so that we can plan for if we're building something new?
I know they're actively looking at it. I don't have a timeline on what they're wanting to do or how they're going that route. But I do think you got to acknowledge as well, there's been a lot of public comments, at the round table that we had, and then there's been some, social media posts to me that in my opinion, points that that's the direction they're actively seeking. Again, I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just trying my best to answer the question. When this originally started, the conversation was a funding agreement. That shifted pretty quickly to, a city system. So based on the comments, based on everything, I think they're working through that process. Can they afford it? Can they do it? To answer your question straight to the point, I don't know a definitive timeline. I'm just going off of what I've been told individually on the phone and what you read on social media.
Right. Well, I don't want us to go and buy a property and then.
Look, that is a potential problem. Okay, if we buy the property, then they back out and don't do a city system. What do you do then? Well, I will caution that, and I'll say, well, the reality is. God is not making any more land, so land continually goes up in value. I would hate to make a purchase and then have to put it back online or back on for sale, but that is always an option. I think the numbers bear out that. I mean, again, we can argue about the number of dollars you're spending, but again, you look at data. The data says that from a commercial standpoint, to me, it's not a bad buy based on the numbers. So if that occurs. But again, if it don't occur, I go back to this. I've said till I'm blue in the face, we've got two major problems you have the facility issues in Prattville, and then you have the growth in Billingsley and Marbury Pine Level area. We can only solve one of them, and without help, the only one we can solve on our own is in the county.
Yeah.
From a dollar standpoint, we don't have the bond capability to solve Prattville. So, you know, I do think if you make that kind of commitment, you know, you're hedging your bets that that's what they're going to do, and then you're getting your ducks ready in the future. But again, worst case scenario, if they don't, and we decide to put the property up for sale, I think we're in good shape there as well. Now, one thing that I will say, if this goes through, two of the buildings, or at least one of the buildings that I was looking at building here, I have to maneuver things to protect the county. So some of these buildings would then be built out there because that makes sense long-term. So there's that as well.
Anyway, you also mentioned just a moment ago that you'd need 3 to 4 months to complete this purchase anyway.
Yeah,
So in 3 to 4 months, we
Right.
might have a lot more clarity than we do now about
Yeah.
the city's direction. and
Right.
where
I
that-
think all of us are struggling with timeline and what does this look like. I think you got to approach it with the most pressing thing at first. The most pressing thing at first is there's only 2 properties that we can even entertain to buy to fix our issue, and one of them's up for sale, and multiple people are looking at it. That's our, I hate to say low-hanging fruit, that's our reality. So we got to solve what we can with the cards that we know right now.
So we talked about, I know that you can't definitively give a number to this right now because and you've already alluded to it with the discussions that you've had with the county commission and perhaps Pine Level.
Right.
But in your confidence level, I guess you'd say, right now, with the money that we can afford with the bond, plus whatever funding agreements that we could possibly get from that, we can afford a high school.
Let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Are you saying if everything stays the same?
Yes. Well, no, if the city splits.
Okay, if the city splits.
Yes, I'm sorry.
If the city
Yes.
splits, yes, at that time, I have no reservations at all about that. Because part of that split is they have to take over the debt. And again, you guys over the last 2 years with Ms. Wallace have navigated a lot of the debt. I mean, people don't realize how much debt we've paid off in 2.5 years. So from that standpoint, I feel very confident.
Okay.
Now, if it don't, there's no way you can do it. Because again, go back to the number, we only qualify for 30 million more in bonds. So we would use some of our local funds, we would partner that with that, and you would, all right, let me back up. You can't even build a middle school without this property, right? So I think that's part of what's got to be understood. Mr. Glover? Oh, I thought you had a question. All right, any further questions? All right, well, I'm going to head back to the seat in just a minute, but I'll go ahead and recommend from here. I recommend approval of the contract as presented.
I want to say this. Thank you so much, Lyman, for the work that you put in on this and bringing this to our attention. I think it goes without saying, you have to protect an investment that was made by a board many years ago now needs to be protected. And it needs to have a use, and we don't have a use for it unless something like this occurs. So, with that being said, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Okay. All in favor of the superintendent's recommendation of these motions, please raise your right hand.
All right, just to clarify one more time, we're not officially closing at the moment. This just starts the process and approves that. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that as well. The people that are watching, I'm sure there'll be some questions on that. All right, I guess all we have left is superintendent report. Is that correct? Yeah, so, sorry, that was a big one. I'm sorry, my brain's kind of all over the place. Look, guys, I know, I'll start with this. I know that whole conversation is going to go a lot of different ways. I appreciate you guys letting me bring you some options. I don't want anybody to think that we're going one route or the other. You have to make decisions with the cards that you have. And I'm not turning our back on the kids in Prattville. That is still out there. We've worked, again, for 2 years trying to find a solution to that issue. I appreciate your faith in me and faith in us, and again, we'll see how the rest of that plays out, but you just have no path moving forward unless we do what you just approved, so I appreciate that. On a different note, I will say this is now my 4th opening of school. This was by far the smoothest, best opening we've had. I want to commend our kids, commend our administrators, commend central office, transportation. Mr. Messick, you look a little stressed back there. You know, we put in a lot of things over the years. When things happen, you try to figure out how do you get better from it. And transportation, Mr. Messick has done a really, really good job. Those first few days of school are just chaotic. They are. Mama's bringing baby to school, and all of a sudden they're on the bus in the afternoon, and they haven't been on the bus in a couple days. And where do you live? You know, there's just a lot of things there. Mr. Messick and his team did a really, really good job of navigating all that today. And again, very, very smooth start to the school, and looking forward to a great school year. So that, and just a quick reminder to our families, you know, many years ago, we used to do all the paper forms. I don't know if y'all remember those, back to school. My wife, when I first got the job, she said, hey, can you please do something with all the back to school forms? Because we got 5 kids at that time. We had 5 kids in the system. And she'd be sitting there for like an hour filling out everything. I don't necessarily like going technology-wide and all that. I'm still old school paper. But I will tell our families, if you have not done the back to school registration online, log in. The directions have been sent to your parent square. I promise you, it is so much quicker and so much easier than doing everything by hand. So get that done. Why is that such a big thing for us? Literally within 24 hours, those changes start syncing with our Power School system. So contact information is so important. Family changes their contact information before the end of the school year over the summer, and we have an issue on the bus. We got to be able to contact people. We have issues in school. We need contact information. That paperwork drives a lot of that, and because it's technology, it syncs pretty quickly. So we're off to a great start. Looking forward to it, and I just appreciate the faith you guys have in me, and we're going to keep on moving on. So great start, ready to keep on going the rest of the school year.
All right. That being it, board members, do I have a motion to adjourn?